And welcome to the Badger Cave's West Wing, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Your sinuous hosts for this evening are myself, Supreme Doge in Charge, Brian, our polecat punster, Hannah, Dr. Random McCam, Panda at Large, Max Simpsonkin, not jaundiced, and our Anchorilla, Scott. This evening we'll be covering you are the Anchorilla. That's right.
That's catchy.
Dicks
That's
out.
very catchy.
Dicks out for Scott.
Yeah.
This evening.
Come on, tits. Tits out for Scott. I mean, if you have to, dicks, fine. That's cool. But I kind of prefer tits. That's all I'm saying.
This evening we'll be covering the following topics: Orgasm Inequality. Remember, everyone, women have a right to request orgasms, and men have the obligation to give them orgasms. Just like men have the right to request orgasms, and women have the obligation to wait. What? Secondly, even though it could land them in jail in some areas of Britain, according to Charlotte Gill, British men still need to flirt with women like her more, even though she personally finds British men icky. We're going to engage in that incredible logic shortly. And lastly, for the live show, several UK charities have recognized that male suicide is a problem since it negatively affects women. The charities rejected the following explanations for why men commit suicide, being told that they're to blame for everything, having their children taken away from them, having no services for male victims of domestic and sexual abuse, in favor of telling all men to man up already because only men with a fragile male ego will kill himself. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Zoe, literally who Quinn, talks about life after Gamergate, since Gamergate is dead, guys. I don't know if you know that. Or rather, her life in Gamergate's evil cackling clutches, since Gamergate is alive and well. But she defeated Gamergate and it's gone unless she is also still oppressed by it. It's confusing, but we're going to get through it. Also, Chris Tingle is officially a hack. Any way you want to listen to this topic or enjoy further personalized discussion with the Badgers on select topics, please become a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Now, here is our Anchorilla, Scott, and the Doge, and Max with the news. So, let me get the... Well, first of all, before we do the news stories, there's a couple things I want to mention. My dog has recently been diagnosed with a condition known as vestibular disease, which is often prominent in older dogs, although younger dogs can get it. It affects their balance and equilibrium. So my dog is basically an eternal drunk, and she's also not eating. The reason why I'm saying this is because I may need to step away from the show to tend to her if she has an episode like where she needs to go out suddenly. So I apologize in advance if that's sudden and I have to break away from the conversation. Now that being said, I think that it's something else we should point out is Gene Wilder passed away recently. Yesterday, I believe it was.
Yes.
And while I'm getting the show notes ready, I thought that maybe one of you guys would like to say a few things about Gene Wilder, if anybody has any thoughts. Max?
Well, to be honest, my entire life centers around the entire medium of film, but I have to be honest, I haven't seen many of Gene Wilder's movies. I haven't seen Young Frankenstein, which I know is absolute heresy.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, man. Like, we'll set up a movie night. We'll do whatever that one movie is, Tombstone. We'll do Young Frankenstein. We'll do a whole Mel Brooks thing. But I will say that a large part of my childhood was watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That is one of my all-time favorite movies. I've been watching it ever since I believe I developed consciousness. I used to watch it in nursery school. I've been watching it pretty much every year for as long as I can remember. It's just there's so much magic, originality within that movie, and it all hinges on the wonderful performance that Gene Wilder gave. He was a part of my childhood in that regard, and a part of childhood not just for my parents' generation or my generation, but I'm sure will be for many years to come. And one other interesting factoid is that just to show how much of a part of my life, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, was my GTA 5 character, GTA meaning Grand Theft Auto, was actually dressed up and has been dressed up as Willy Wonka for the past 3 years. And so I've just been going around gunning people down as Willy Wonka, and I got a 2.0 KD ratio. It's pretty dope. So there you go. Rest in peace, Mr. Wilder.
Yeah. He will be missed, and this is just the year of all kinds of awesome people, going away. So,
that's something that I've been noticing for a while. Think about it. Some of the icons of our generation are just sort of they're hitting that age. He was 83 years old, and Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is actually can be extraordinarily cruel, and it was nice to read that he kept his mental faculties, because it can be a thief of people. I watched my grandmother go through it, and it was horrible. One of the neatest things I remember seeing, though, online about Mr. Wilder was the fact that he didn't let it out. He didn't let the information out. He didn't want people to know about it. And it wasn't because he was trying to protect himself. It was because he was trying to protect children from having to deal with that information when they would see him and they'd start going, "Hey, it's Willy Wonka!" He wanted to preserve kids' ability to enjoy the character right up to the end. I thought that was incredibly selfless and kind.
Yeah, there's a really pure comedic spirit to him that very few comedic actors, I believe, have been able to capture so naturally. He just has that draw to him,
And actually, there's a movie that nobody ever mentions, and it was a parody. Let's see if I can remember the name of it. It was World's Greatest Lover or Greatest Lover in the World. I think it was World's Greatest Lover, which was actually hilarious. And it was as funny as the other movies, but it was all in a sort of tongue-in-cheek, making fun of Hollywood, the Hollywood romance stars. It was kind of making fun of the hullabaloo over Rudy Valentino. But in any case, if you start watching Gene Wilder movies to sort of catch up, I recommend that if you watch that one, you don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Also, the producers, pretty much one of the greatest things ever.
Oh yeah, the producers. All right. Yeah, excellent. I liked him from Blazing Saddles, and like the stuff he did with Richard Pryor. I never actually saw the Gene Wilder version of Willy Wonka, so I should also. Yes, I know. It's just
I can't even.
As a child, we were really poor, and we didn't get to go to the movies often, and so we can only watch TV things. I didn't get cable until I moved out. So.
Wait, you never saw it on TV?
No.
They used to run it on TV around here all the time.
Yeah, no, I don't remember it being run on TV. But anyway,
that's where I saw it when I was a kid. Yeah.
Brian.
Yes, Matt.
Listen to me just for 1 second, okay? If you want to view paradise,
God.
simply look around and view it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Anything you want to, do it.
One thing I would also say, Max, when you killed people in Grand Theft Auto, did you say "Good day, sir" afterwards?
Yeah. Yes, I did on a number of occasions.
You get nothing, you lose.
Yeah, and then I teabag them and tell them to taste my gobstopper.
All right, and one other thing I want to throw in there before we get into the first story, which will be the one about flirting in Britain. So, Scott, if you want to get that ready.
Flirting in Britain.
Yeah, that'll be the first one. Before we get on that, I want to say that you're looking at a piece of fan art by one of our viewers named Conspiracy. This is what Allison said. I hope it's right. Conspiracy, this is awesome. It's a Badger Super Saiyan or Saiyan or something. So, yeah, it looks like fun. Thanks for making this. And thank you, Conspiracy, for putting this together. This nice piece of action-packed Badger art. So, okay. So next, I guess we're going to get into the story. Scott!
Woohoo! Here we go. Dear men, flirt for feminism. In an era where the terms mansplaining, manspreading, and manslamming all exist to demonize men for man existing, it's obvious why some eligible bachelors would want nothing to do with women. But it seems that this excuse me, it seems that this is a problem for a subsection of the female feminist population of Britain. Having completely cowed their men into a state of utter submission, they have made themselves unapproachable. In a classic case of eating their cake and still wanting to have it afterwards, Britain's women want these subjugated shells of men to actively flirt with them. It's the mother of all mixed messages, stating one minute that things such as compliments or a friendly hello are harassment, but in the same breath demanding that they strike up conversation with a romantic intent. How are men supposed to win? The answer is obvious. They aren't. The game these women expect men to play has no win condition. The rules change by the minute and often contradict each other. If it's only harassment when you don't want it, but welcome flirting when you want it, then I suggest you get used to cats being your only company in the near future.
All right, so I have one initial thought. Nottinghamshire.
Yeah, same.
That's my only thought. They made it essentially hate speech for men to holler at women, and Charlotte Gill is asking men to please holler at women. What?
It's a hell of a mixed message, but I'll tell you what I'd do: stay the fuck home. It's on the one side, some chick who wrote an article wants you to do a thing, and on the other side, it's illegal. So fuck her. How about you guys start doing the catcalling? Yeah. How about you guys start randomly telling guys how attractive they are? Could that be nah? God bless you. Nah.
Based on what feminists say about feminism, obviously versus what feminists actually do, but based on what they say about feminism, based on the proclamations, especially of second wave feminists, about being able to do everything men can do and do it better, and never let you forget you're a man and all that other crap, it would be an expectation that feminists be the ones, that women be the ones to start, making the first move, to start offering men compliments, to flirt, to ask guys out, and to pay for dates. In fact, I think that should start to become a social movement. Ask him out. Quit your bitching.
Oh, there you go. Hashtag ask him out.
Yeah. Hashtag ask him out. I mean, I've done that. I used to get in trouble for it when I was younger because all the other girls told me the guys would think terrible things of me. Never had any backlash on it from the guys when I was young, but I did. I used to get told by all the other girls, oh, they won't respect you if you ask them out. Oh, they won't respect you if you take them out on a date. Oh, they won't respect you if you buy them a drink. Yeah, they do. Actually, they think that's pretty cool. Try it.
I think I want to get a little bit into this op-ed because there's some really funny shit written in here that I think we need to laugh at. So we'll definitely come back to this one. I want to read a little bit of it. So. Okay, next story. In brief, it's essentially... I'll give you guys the brief version, because I didn't get a write-up yet. 12 reasons why there's orgasm inequality, and no, it's not that women are harder to please. This is
Wait, are you sure about that?
Orgasm inequality is now a problem. This is the problem the problems we live in the Western world. Yeah. So... There is a list.
I'd like to make a comment about that, though. Women are definitely harder to please. Just as a rule of thumb. That has been my understanding of women throughout my life, that they are much harder to please.
There's lactation inequality as well.
Yeah, right.
It's really hard to get a man to lactate. I think it might be maybe if you wire something up wrong or whatever. But yeah, women have all the milk. It's not fair.
I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
Yeah, so we'll definitely... I want to go through the list in the discussion portion. I think we'll find it funny because there are 12 reasons listed. So we got to look at those. Thank you, everydayfeminism.com. Don't ever change, otherwise we won't have shit to talk about. So last story, probably the most important one. Which I think is definitely worth talking about as well. Max, I want to give you the floor, if you don't mind, telling us a little bit about male suicide.
Yeah, going from the lactating jokes and the dick jokes, we're unfortunately going to have to talk about something serious. Well, no, well, you know, not unfortunately, but we just have to talk about something serious for this particular podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's about suicide, particularly male suicide in the UK. This is from an article written back in November 2015. A coalition of charity chiefs and experts from the UK have insisted that rising suicide rates among men should be treated as a national public health issue. Charities like the Samaritans and Rethink Mental Illness have written to a committee of MPs urging them to make time to debate the issue. This follows multiple instances of research which have come out these past few weeks. Well, past few weeks as in last November. One example published last week by the... Damn it. Sorry, excuse me. One example published by the charity known as Campaign Against Living Miserably, also known as CALM, showed that more than 4 in 10 men have thought about taking their own lives at some point. Another government survey of more than 2,000 men found a similar proportion never talk about their problems because they apparently feel ashamed, they did not want to discuss feelings, or did not, quote, want to make a fuss. On top of these studies, clashes between the Tory MP Philip Davies and Labour's Jess Phillips have prompted these reactions. Phillips reacted with laughter after Davies suggested there was limited opportunity to discuss men's issues in Parliament. Despite these tensions, it is good to see some attention being drawn to this pertinent issue. However, there is still some concern to be had when looking at the comments section below the article. Commenters have noted the political affiliations of some of the parties involved and how those affiliations may lead to mischaracterizations of what is causing these rising levels of male suicide. We'll be discussing these comments in a few minutes.
Yeah. So, in short, it's great that the discussion is, people are wanting to discuss this, the issue of male suicide. It's something that, for whatever reason, we didn't really want to talk about, or at least not honestly. Although there is still what I think is commonly known as the feminist argument for why male suicide is a thing, especially recently with the discussions around strict gender roles surrounding men and the pressure to be men and toxic masculinity, blah, blah, blah. And why it's basically men's fault that they're killing themselves. So we'll get into that definitely in the discussion portion. So. All right, so I guess that's it for the stories. That's only 3, but I think that there'll be plenty to talk about. So do you want to talk a little bit? Oh yeah, we got to go back to the Telegraph, or I'm sorry, Telegraph News. Britain needs you to do your duty and get flirting. So I want to come back to this one, and I want to get to a bit in here. Okay, so this is written by Charlotte Gill, and she writes a couple things that I find particularly interesting. There are a lot of things I love about Britain, just not its men. And I don't want to stereotype them all, so let me be more specific. I refer to those my own age who have forced me to bookmark a cattery website. In the romantic arena, trying to meet a man sometimes makes me feel like David Attenborough stepping into the jungle to locate a Jesus lizard, which is a real thing. Finding Mr. Dreamy is difficult because the main strategies a girl can use are wrought with danger. Number 1 is proactivity in 2016. It seems fair that a woman can approach a chap she fancies. This sometimes works, but generally does seem to make the man's inside shrivel up when asked, having a good night, or something equally menacing. So we consign ourselves to option 2, which is waiting. So apparently, approaching a man, if he's uncomfortable with your approach, makes you not want to approach him. So let's get men to do it, so when they don't want to be approached, they will be more persistent and then perhaps get arrested.
Does she not see that she just explained why men have a rough time approaching women? Is she like that stupid?
Yeah.
I don't want to approach men because it's hard. If they reject me, I'm having a rough time.
Yeah.
And then she makes fun of, like, can you imagine a man writing this article and complaining that women shrivel up when asked having a good night? You know, there'd be like 1,000 comments on the article from women just going, "Stalker!" You know, and he's not. He's just sad that he's getting treated as persona non gratis.
It's crazy. I'll read the sentence again. This sometimes works, which is approaching a chap that she fancies, but generally does seem to make the man's insides shrivel up, when asked, having a good night, or something equally menacing.
I don't know
what. We consign ourselves to waiting.
I don't know what's wrong with her. Like, I've never noticed this. Like, I've approached a lot of guys, and just during when I was dating and everything, that was not an uncommon thing for me to just walk up and start talking to somebody. And that's never been a problem. I mean, I've gotten turned down before, but nobody's ever been upset about being approached.
Have you ever gotten mace to the face or a bunch of cops to beat you up or anything like that?
No. Usually I get, thank you, that's really sweet, chuckle, but I have a girlfriend, or if I'm getting turned down, or but I'm not interested, or whatever. And once in a while I got, but I don't swing that way, but never got, you creep, get away from me, what's wrong with you, shame on you, nothing like that. Or nothing like, oh, you slut, whore, bitch, none of that. I got that from gals that knew that I asked guys out, but I never saw that happen. I wonder what she's doing that's making the man's insides shrivel up when she approaching him, hey, having a good night?
Yeah, right.
She got wide eyes and looking scary. Having a good night?
I hope you're enjoying your evening. Sir, would you like to come back to my parlor? I don't know. All right, so anyway. Okay, so we consign ourselves to option 2, which is waiting, which is just as problematic as nothing happens. This is the conclusion that my friend and I came to last week while we were sitting at a bar. We're hardly bad company, and several lads gave us a... Yeah.
There's no fucking way you're bad company. There's no way you look like a pair of bitches sat there. Oh.
We all know that men just love sitting around listening to women bitch about men all night. That is their favorite thing. That is why male suicide is such a small problem and nobody ever does it. Because you love listening to women bitching about men.
Yeah, this is why I'm saving the suicide story for last if we go through these other two. Just to frame it a little bit, just to frame everything,
Give it a little context.
Yeah. We're hardly bad company, I swear. And several lads gave us a cheeky stare as they did the toilet trot. Still nothing happened, so we stared sadly into our mojitos at single reflections. Aww.
Gosh.
Yeah,
cheeky stare and toilet trot.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go take a shit. I wanna flirt. Really?
Eventually, one guy asked if we'd like to join him for some table football. He was dashing and curious. He was German, of course, because the only people who'll ever chat you up in Britain are not British. So she goes around insulting British people, and then complains that British people are not approaching her. This is the logic. After which, the whole social schema is made so incredibly hostile to anybody for trying to talk to each other, lest they get arrested or ticketed. In which, what was it last time we... Well, I mean, I haven't looked recently, but the last time I remember we looked at the Nottinghamshire thing, ever since they made wolf whistling and unwanted approaches to women a hate crime, there have been 20-something incidents and a couple of arrests. Arrests! And yet...
Yeah, and that was a few weeks ago, too.
Yeah, and that was a few weeks ago.
There's been more by now, so...
I'm not Claudia Schiffer, but I don't think I'm Chewbacca either. Yet operating in this asexual environment, it is possible to feel largely unattractive. Some sort of winter chill has frosted over British men's gonads, and it's leaving us all out in the cold.
Hold on, let me address that for a second. Some sort. There is a place in Great Britain where they actually made it punishable to approach a woman.
Yeah.
Some chill, like, oh, how did this happen? I have no idea. Well, fucking open your eyes, retard. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's fucking kill me now, please.
I think this might be like this. By the way, guys, if I had to look at this, I don't know that this is actually a feminist argument. I think this is more of a this may be coming from traditionalism, What was that, Mike?
It was a very telling couple of lines. It's almost like a whodunit, like she's closing in on the answer. Yet operating in this asexual environment, or how did that happen? It is possible to feel largely unattractive. Some sort of winter chill has frosted over British men's gonads. Yeah, I don't know, what could that be? Let's look at the universities. What's going on there? Oh, that's interesting. Let's look at what's going on all over the fucking TV and all over the newspapers. Interesting. Everyone likes feminism now.
Yeah.
In fact, what you've just described there is the kind of thing that people call feminism, and then get booed at by all the other fucking article writers.
I know. This is the bed they made.
It's almost as though some kind of hatred for men has frosted over Britain.
Yeah,
but that's impossible because there's hatred for men. What's that? Well, one day we'll have a word for it, but until then, I don't know. It's just some kind of miasma, some kind of fantasy. Misandry, people.
What would this mythical potential word be, Mike? I mean,
I don't know. I can't find a word that doesn't get a zigzaggy red line underneath it when I try and type it out. So nothing to call it, I'm afraid.
Oh, dear. Well, that's a shame. That's a real shame, huh?
I don't know. Yeah. Okay, so if only they'd learned from the Europeans, maybe we'd be in with a chance. In countries such as Italy, Spain, and France, the men are as forward as it gets. Yeah, I bet, especially Germany.
Especially because the women in those countries are far more attractive. Just saying.
Okay, now, you guys gotta know I'm an American and I went to public school and everything, so I might be wrong on this, but isn't the UK part of Europe?
Not anymore.
Not anymore!
No, it's not part of the European Union, but is it not part of the continent of Europe?
Yeah.
Are you not considered European? Have you not?
Tectonically speaking, yeah, we are.
Like, okay, I was having a moment there. I'm like, wait a minute, did I learn something wrong in school again?
Who wants to bet that the chick that wrote this article, that her next article is going to be why all pro-Brexiters are literally Hitler?
Yeah, right.
God.
I'm taking bets on what her teeth look like, and that's maybe why she's like. She might look at it and then she smiles and she's like, "Whoa!"
By the way, there's this common
kind of weird look on their face because they saw her when she smiled and it's like, "I."
There's common sort of myth. That British people are really polite. It's the same thing that follows Canadians around, and I've got a theory about it. Yeah. I think it's the men who are polite. The women in those countries, as far as most countries go, are as far from polite as you can possibly get. I mean, I know there's a lot of polite Canadians, but there's also a lot of big reds. Aren't there? I know there's a lot of polite British people. There's a lot of people like this cunt.
Kinda. Like, I can speak as a Canadian that most of the people here are a lot like body snatchers. Like, you speak to them in very basic terms on surface level. Everybody seems extremely nice. But this moment that you show any emotion, they literally point at you, open up their mouths, and let out the most excruciating sound you'll ever hear.
Yeah.
I live in Toronto, for Christ's sake.
Oh,
Okay.
Toronto, yeah, that's like the capital. That's where Mother Brain lives, I think.
Yep.
In Britain, it's as if the stereotypical school disco girls on one side, boys on the other, continues into adulthood. 8-year-olds are probably better at asking for a dance. As a result, the singles market is growing, with 51% of people in England and Wales eating dinner for one.
Hold on, let me address something real quick.
Yeah.
She says 8-year-olds are probably better at asking for a dance. Well, yeah, I would fucking hope so, because they're not saddled with all these societal expectations that adults have to deal with, like all this fucking man hate, fucking expectations about men always paying for everything, this, that, and the other. I mean, Christ, we could go down the fucking laundry list of things that make it harder for a fucking adult man to ask a woman out on a fucking date.
And they haven't gone through puberty yet. Like, every time they look at a woman, their entire inner hardwiring doesn't just go insane like that one kid from the movie Inside Out. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
People
get this
in the
bit.
chat.
You may be thinking that all of this is trivial, but this dating dallying has big societal consequences. As The Guardian likes to remind us, loneliness kills. So dithering lads are actually murderers when you think about it. I'm not. This is probably hyperbolic, but I'm going to read that again to make sure you guys get this. Loneliness kills. So dithering lads, that's men that don't ask women out despite all the risks involved, and I don't just mean the risks of rejection, because that wouldn't be a big fucking deal. There are plenty of countries where you'll probably get approached by men, and they don't care whether you reject them or not. I'm just saying, I'm not naming any places, but there are places you can go, some of which are in Europe, and you will get approached, and you will be beating them off of you literally. But apparently,
Jesus Christ, Brian.
Well,
You had to use that phrase.
But the apparently, if you are a dithering lad, someone who doesn't approach a woman, you are murdering them because the loneliness will kill them. So women are still the victims in this particular scenario. I'm not sure what the psychological reasons for their inactivity is. Perhaps feminists have scared them off with complaints of catcalling. So much so that, like the Jesus lizard, a wolf whistle is near extinction. Well, the wolf whistle's fucking illegal now. So, yeah, maybe that's why. And this is what I'm talking about. This seems to be a woman that is upset about the way things are and is blaming the men for it instead of looking at laws that have been passed and the way that the academia works. You know, Scott mentioned the 8-year-old. It's almost like when you have an 8-year-old boy and they're still learning what boundaries are, and they generally don't care about rules because they don't really recognize, you know, especially like societal, cultural ones, then they'll just ask a girl or a boy whatever it is they want to ask them. And then it's almost like they're conditioned or learned to unlearn those things and to be afraid. This is what happens. So, yes, what's your fucking name? Charlotte Gill. You might want to think about where that's coming from and stop blaming men for not manning up. Because I don't see any reason why men should man up, according to your definition, when it's just too fucking dangerous. And that's all I got to say about that.
Well, the reason they don't man up is because if they don't, then they're a bunch of school shooters. Join the army, or we'll fucking bully you into submission. When you do join the army, there's a very good chance you'll go down on the first day. This is all an analogy with, you know, approach women.
Yeah.
We know there's a good chance you'll get shot down and possibly get sent to prison, but you're a murderer if you don't. It's much like the draft, but sicker, way sicker.
You know what this reminds me of, actually? It reminds me of when my brother was in elementary school, and my brother was an adorable kid. It's like Elliot from E.T., adorable. And so he got chased by a lot of girls. And they used to try to get his attention by pushing him down on the playground, you know, and of course he's a boy, he can't hit back. But if that didn't make him enamored, then he was accused of being a bully because the girl had tried so hard to get him attention, get his attention, you know, by pushing him down on the playground or kicking him in the shins or whatever. And her feelings were hurt when he didn't reciprocate with, you know, positive attention after being assaulted like that. And it strikes me that this individual is pretty much doing the same thing, but verbally, which means that maybe psychologically she never really progressed past the 2nd or 3rd grade.
Sick burn, Hannah.
Does anybody else have any final thoughts about this article before we move on to the next one?
You know, it just seems kind of like maybe it's just because of the position that we're in that we talk about this stuff, but it seems like, and this is kind of what we look for, like just, you know, things in this sphere, as it were, so we're more aware of it. But geez, man, get your head out of the sand and, you know, look around, because like you're asking all these questions, but you're not really looking for any answers. Like she's not looking for actual answers here. She's just, you know, she's postulating and whatever about this, that, and the other. But like if she opened her eyes and actually looked around, she would see that the you know, the landscape out there is pretty hostile towards men in pretty much every regard, from dating to, you know, finding jobs to fucking courts. I mean, everywhere you look, it's, you know, people want to talk about men being, you know, well, white men being privileged, this, that, and the other. But I mean, you know, every day we see things like Nottinghamshire or whatever the fuck the place is, fucking making it basically illegal to talk to a woman, because if you say it the wrong way, you know, or something that she perceives as wrong, or or whatever, that she can fucking file charges against you. It's like, come on, this is the fucking, we're living in bizarro land right now, and people are writing bullshit like this. It's like, get the fuck out of here, wake up. I mean, if like you said earlier, it's like if she actually cares about this kind of stuff and she wants to look into it, she needs to fucking look at what feminists are doing and the kind of things that they're pushing, as far as, like, you know, that are becoming litigious, just talking to other people. So, I mean, the answers are there. I just don't think she wants it. This is just more fluffy bullshit that gets written to satiate a 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah, that's highly likely. I mean, it's not really news; it's just an opinion piece.
You know what I mean. Yeah.
But it also is showing you that, you know, like, we do a lot of talking about, you know, the stuff that feminists are doing on the show, the ways in which they're trying to get more laws passed, more policies. You know, they want to talk about men. And since they can generally control the dialogue surrounding gender, they want to talk about men any way they want to, which is usually not coming from a place of sympathy, but more of a place of wanting to control their behavior or dictate what masculinity should be, because they're really ultimately only concerned with themselves. But on the other side of it, there are women that are not interested in feminism, that are not feminists, and men too. And what they want is for men to stop acting like bitches, find their balls, and be men. But the problem with that is that they're not really doing it because they actually care about men. They're doing it because they think the world should be the way that they are more comfortable with. And so they're not really fighting against the appropriate agents in this. They're actually still fighting against men. They're telling men that despite the fact that, you know, you're running risk of going to prison or getting fined or getting put on a sex offender list or whatever, that you should still do it anyway, because that's what a man does, because they're going to tell men what men should do. So they don't really have friends on either the left or the right. And I know that I'm oversimplifying this a bit, but I'm doing this for effect, just to explain. So this is not a woman who is a feminist. This is a woman who wants things the way they used to be, and she thinks that there is some way to get back to that, and the way to do it is to shame men and tell them they don't have their balls. Specifically, in this case, British men.
She's got no one to blame except the war on men, with feminism, basically, and they're actually getting closer to it. I came up with an analogy quite a while ago, that it's like two orbiting satellites around a planet, always constantly shitting on the planet, but they can't see each other because they're at antipodal orbits. So they're always shitting on the thing in the middle and blaming the thing in the middle because they can't see the shit coming from the other thing. But I'm starting to notice that they are noticing each other now. They're more like the Twin Rover the Twisters from the Ocarina of Time, those fucking witch sisters. They're actually seeing each other doing it now. She actually says, "Oh, perhaps feminists have scared them off with complaints of catcalling." Yeah, I did see that. I saw everything that happened, but I'm still going to poke you with my fucking fire wand. Because I'm just going to pretend that she didn't do that with the ice wand just now. Loo-lee-la-lee-la.
Yeah, it's like we're shitting on this planet together, but it is such a big and powerful planet. Why doesn't the planet just, you know, stop being shit on and just, like, get its own, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I mean, I don't know. This just very not sympathetic towards men, because all of this is about her. If she found a man early on and all this was still going on, she wouldn't be writing this piece. So that's another thing that's also important to put out there. This woman is talking about herself. This is all this stuff about male problems don't matter because it's her problem. So, anyway, enjoy your cats. So, 12 reasons.
I got one more thing on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I was thinking about this. You know, we talked about her being solipsistic and everything, but what she's really done is shine a spotlight on an area of clear, pretty much obvious female privilege that people ignore. It's almost like it's got somebody else's problem field on it, so nobody ever notices. But this is a really good example of a woman not understanding men's choices, because she's speaking from a place of having less requirement in her life to consider the consequences of her actions before she acts on them. or of her potential actions before she takes them. Because she's actually criticizing men for considering the potential consequences of a choice before making that choice, and then basing their choice on the best possible outcome, or to avoid the worst possible outcome. I mean, that's normal human behavior. That's adult behavior. And she's pissed off because men are acting like adults. And the only reason that she has the luxury of getting pissed off at anybody for acting like an adult is because, being female, there are huge swatches of her life that are shielded from her having to do that. And that's something that men in general don't have. And there are men who have money that can help get away with, help them get away with things that men who don't have money can't get away with. But none of them have the amount of privilege in their own class that women have with respect to this.
Yeah. Thanks, Hannah. Well said. Okay. You know what? I should probably share my screen with you guys too. I'm sorry. So, 12 reasons. You know what? I can just read it. 12 reasons why there's orgasm inequality. And no, it's not that women are harder to please. Orgasm inequality, everybody. This is where we're at. All right, so let's go through the reasons. Let's find out what they are. There's a lot of talk about cis men and all this bullshit, but number one, people believe women are less sexual. Do they? Women, the story goes, aren't that into sex. What? Somebody's going to say something?
Well, I mean, aren't they? We're all sexual beings, but it's just, from what I understand, I could have swore I read something that, as a product of testosterone or something, that men tend to be a little bit more, not aggressive, but just a little bit more intense with their sexual actions, I suppose.
Yeah.
You need to find a control group of some kind of society that doesn't clamp down on men's sexual drive at all times, inevitably causing this sort of extra
True
desire. Possibly a long time ago, the women were the horny ones. In the wild, presumably we're both pretty horny, but there's fuck all history to go on that. There's quite a popular myth that women have never enjoyed sex, that they've only gone through it with as a sort of duty to their family, which obviously is what upper class societies have been reduced to in order to try and thin the herd or whatever. So that, and whatever myths the upper class believe in are the ones that get propagated to everyone else. But I'm pretty bloody sure women enjoy sex as much as men, in possibly very different ways. That's why they have very different orgasms. But
they also have a different porn preferences. It's a bit more emotional for them, and I think that when it comes to the sexual desire, it's possible that men feel more pressure to ejaculate more often, because they are more likely to essentially lose out on the sexual bottleneck. So they probably make up for it with more desperation, i.e., more. They're thirstier, but I don't know that they enjoy sex more. I think that they're generally thirstier, though.
If I can interject here,
yeah,
just very quickly, and this is just my own personal experience. My ex and I she loved having sex. So did I. It was great. Fucking sex is awesome. Who doesn't love sex, right? It's fucking rad. But she was a little bit kooky, and she would get pissed off if I didn't come. She would get mad about it. It's because I just sometimes I just liked fucking and not coming. But she would get mad about it, and it's funny because you just mentioned sort of that they're under pressure to ejaculate. And I was just and I totally was, and it was totally stressful, and it ended up being a real problem towards the end, because she was stressing me out. It was just can't we just kind of just do this and have fun? But she's like, why didn't you come? What's wrong? It's something I did. What's wrong with me? You don't love me anymore. It's whoa, dude, calm down.
It was almost like it was an affront to her attractiveness, wasn't it?
No, it absolutely was.
Fake it, dude. Why just fake it?
Yeah. Well, it's a little harder to fake squirting, isn't it?
Come on my face or you don't love me.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
No,
You
it's
know,
like, but there was legitimate pressure to ejaculate, though, like you had just mentioned, right? I mean, it sounds silly, but like I experienced that firsthand, and it was such a fucking weird thing.
I'm not surprised by that at all. You know, and this is something that you hear all the time in media, and particularly, you know, feminist writers will act like it's been, you know, men telling women that women are not sexual and men claiming that men are sexual all the time. It's been the other way around. Most of the stereotypes involving sex are driven by women. Women slut shame each other. Women compete with each other for men. Women are sexual beings. You know, we aren't the sexual teetotalers that female society makes us out to be. And that's something that, like, you can't you can't use something as a you know, get what you want card if it's common and it's easily accessible. But you can if it's controlled, and people think that you're giving it grudgingly, or people think that you have to be persuaded to give it. You know, and women a lot of times will treat sex very much like money. You know, I will withhold this until I get what I want.
It's absolutely currency.
And this is not something that, you know, this is not to say condemnation or approval or whatever. That's the way it's been for hundreds of years. You know, the women have treated sex as a currency. And of course, you know, with marriage evolving the way it did, with it being a family arrangement, with it being something that was arranged between the parents, and very, very often as part of a business deal, or as part of a, you know, like a union between the families, or a treaty, depending on what type of family you were from. You know, it wasn't like intimacy was something that, it wasn't a free choice for everybody. You know, it wasn't something that you could just go, oh, I'm just going to be intimate with whoever I want to. No, society really clamped down on that. And women, their only way, because this is the way things were, their only way of ensuring, you know, I'm going to get a good husband, I'm going to have a good life, or whatever. If they didn't want to take the man's role and live on their own and earn their own living and make their own way, that's what they had to do, was use sex as a bargaining chip. That you put their reputation into their loyalty to their family. They had to put their reputation into their fidelity, and they had to ensure that other women did the same, because if they didn't, those two things would be worthless. And so when women acknowledge that we like sex, we're like scabs, you know, to the rest of the women's strike, or we're like non-union workers to the rest of the women's union. And they hate that. They absolutely hate that. And there's a great deal of social penalty among women for women who basically violate that unspoken, or rather quietly spoken, condemnation of you know, of having sexual interest. And, you know, at the other end of it, yeah, men have always been expected to be virile and reproductive, and because of that, you know, because you have to have heirs, right? You have to have kids that work your business, your farm, your business, that, you know, in the city, whatever. You have to have kids to replace you when you die, and it's always been this, you know, an unfertile adult has always been seen as problematic. You know, the old spinster, the old maid, the guy who never marries, the hermit, you know, the couple that can't have children is pitied, and a man who doesn't get off when he has sex must have something wrong with him, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even occur to most women that men are not such horny, knuckle-dragging animals, you know, that they're going to come every time, because women tell other women that that's what men are. And they grow up hearing it from their moms. They grow up hearing it even from their dads, you know, who want to protect them from the guys that do act like that, or the guys that dad assumes acts like that. But they don't know any better. And, you know, and the lack of communication just completely destroys the ability of both sexes to enjoy each other in bed.
Well, you know, this is something I touched on last week. I said, or somebody said, I responded to it, about I had read this quote about the only emotion men have is ejaculation. and hence the male tears of semen thing. But it's just like it's just like sometimes I like fucking and not coming. It's okay. I just like there's a lot of feeling involved in it that is not just the the release. I mean, there's other stuff that happens that's pretty rad along the way. So
it's about the journey, Matt. It's about the journey.
Well, there's a certain wall you hit. I mean, for the first 15 minutes, you're trying not to come, but after that, you've reached a certain point of fatigue at which it's actually very difficult to come, no matter how. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's happened. I've been there. Where you you work so hard to like. Sometimes like you want to last longer, and then you find that you can't go back. It's like it's weird.
Maybe I'm a more sensitive.
That's when you get into the
I don't have
tantra.
that issue though. So
It's when you can get into the extended sort of business because then you're trying to work it with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, I know a moment ago I was trying to work with myself not to come, but now let's work with myself to come. And if you're busy doing that, then she's often enjoying herself. Is the thing. So I don't know what she would be complaining about.
Right. But then maybe Scott has a point. Perhaps it's just a case of different strokes for different. So
I was half expecting Hannah to make that joke.
I'm
I'm
gonna go on to the next reason because we got to get through 12 real quick.
Oh, God, yeah.
Number 2, pornography privileges male pleasure.
Yes, because men are the ones that consume it more.
Yeah, because male sexuality might be different. I mean, there is porn for women, and it tends to be different. Although men get into that too, and I don't just mean like somebody in the chat earlier said as one of our women listeners said, I like gay porn. I mean like heterosexual couples porn that is made supposedly according to sex.com. Not that I go there, I just did that a little bit of research. It's made for women, and it tends to be romantic and white sheets and high film quality and stuff like that. I don't know why that supposedly is. But then again, if you really want to think about it, what is porn for women? It's probably mostly erotica, like novels, like Harlequin romance novels. That's like porn for women, isn't it? So,
yeah, to a certain degree.
To a degree.
Okay.
I kind of like the high production value stuff. Because like to me, when there's like the stuff that turns me off is like, oh fuck me, fuck you, fuck me, fuck me.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It's just that just takes me out of it. I'm just like, there's nothing sexy about that. Like it's just like when there's something. I mean, maybe I'm just a big pussy or whatever, but I kind of like the build. I like to work towards it.
You like to watch a man and a woman melt together and become a single organism from all the love. I'm not. No. I'm just.
my ex on the hood of the car plenty of time in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere. But I'm just.
Right.
Sometimes it's kind of nice, just the fucking the intimacy of it. It's
sure.
sexy.
No, I agree. I mean, we're talking about in aggregate what is popular with women and what is popular with men. Obviously, there's plenty of wiggle room for preferences.
Yeah.
But it seems to me, from when you look at the sales numbers and like the figures, porn made for women by porn sites tends to be that more sort of intimate, romantic stuff, and romance novels like 50 Shades of Grey did not sell millions of copies because it wasn't porn. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. It's not like it was well written. It's not like it was a good piece of literature. So there had to be some appeal. And then when it comes to porn that appeals to men, I don't think that gonzo stuff is actually as popular. I think that what tends to be more popular is, I have to look it up, but it's probably like, reality stuff. Well, they call it reality, but it's when,
right.
female
Role
pizza
play.
delivery, role play stuff, like female pizza delivery person shows
Somebody call for a really hairy plumber?
I don't know why. But, or like a masseuse or, somebody exotic like Latinas and Asians. And
wait, Latinas are exotic?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I would think that if the majority of Americans are white, then Latinas are probably exotic to them, especially from when I drove across the country. I didn't see a lot of Hispanics except when I was in bigger cities. So maybe. I mean, I don't really know.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
saying that there might be
It's
some
outside the
appeal
average
there.
white American's wheelhouse.
Like people,
Yeah.
like look.
That's
What's the name of the Iranian porn star? I think she's Middle Eastern.
Khalifa?
Mia Khalifa. She's not
Yeah.
really popular
Why do I know
just
that?
because she's attractive. I think that the fact she's like Lebanese. I think the fact that she's Lebanese has a lot to do with it. So
And actually, there are if you visit like different free porn sites, there are sections that are specifically Latina. There are sections that are specifically different nations from the Orient. It just depends on the person, but yeah, it is considered exotic to watch somebody from a different ethnic group than your own.
yeah.
People in exotic regions of the planet, right? What do they refer to as like white people and Westerners?
They probably consider them exotic.
Polar, like tundric or something, because it's not exotic. We're from cold regions of the planet.
I hear what you're
We
saying.
probably have a different word for it.
Yeah, they probably do. That's a good point.
Mastodons up there.
I wonder if there are like Asian women in China that watch like, Billy Glide videos or something. I don't know.
Well, you think about it. If you think about it, everything or to every area, other areas are exotic. And if you look at what's influenced Japanese culture, one of my favorite animes for a while was on Cartoon Network of all things was Fooly Cooly, and the whole theme, was sort of centered around baseball, even though it wasn't about baseball. And this is a big thing there, and it didn't originate there. But they picked up on it, and it was really, suddenly really great, and it was an exotic thing to them. And I remember watching, God, I think it was TV's Bloopers and Practical Jokes back in the 70s. There was an episode where they started looking at the names of products on the shelves in stores in Japan, and it was explained to the American audience that English is exotic to the Japanese, or at least was then. I don't know if it is now. The way French is exotic and Spanish is exotic to Americans. And they had a bottle of shampoo they were showing people, in the video and telling them the meaning of the label. And it was called My Pea Baby Shampoo. And, so that's what made it the blooper. Or the practical joke, but it was funny because to them that sounded really exotic, and then of course the English-speaking world is going, her, that's named after urine. Of course, it's going to be exotic to watch porn of somebody with facial features that are different than your own ethnic facial features, because they're different. That's interesting.
Yeah. There's probably something like dealing with. There might be something with evolutionary psychology that plays a role in it, like where you see somebody that looks really different from you, so you think that they might be able to contribute to the gene pool in a way that strengthens your offspring. I don't know. Kind of like mutts, right? They're more resistant to, conditions, diseases, and other afflictions that will affect purebred dogs because there isn't enough diversity in their DNA.
It might just be that because, like other primates, humans are intensely curious about the world around us. Mm-hmm. We find things that we're not accustomed to, whether it be somebody looking different than ourselves, or a puzzle that we haven't tried yet, or a new planet, or whatever. Information is fascinating to us. And the fact that somebody looks different from us is going to fascinate us. We're going to want to stare. It just may be that basic. It may not even be an evolutionary thing. Aside from the fact that being curious helps us learn about our environment, and you're more likely to survive an environment you're familiar with.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Reason number 3, that there is orgasm inequality. The myth of blue balls persists.
Myth?
The myth. According to the Urban Dictionary, because the Urban Dictionary is totally a resource you're supposed to look up.
Right.
Blue balls is
the
excruciating pain a man receives when his balls swell to the size of coconuts because of a lack of sex, unfinished BJs, and not coming when he knows he should.
And that's not exaggerating or anything. That's a real definition.
Well, they don't swell up, but it definitely can cause some fucking pain, though.
And the the proviso of lack of sex unfinished BJs is irrelevant. It's just not coming. You can get over blue balls with a wank, perfectly fine. So I don't know why you brought sex into it, because that really is a myth, I think.
Apparently, everyday feminism likes to debunk myths that aren't even myths. Number 4, there's more information on the media about pleasing cis men, those fucking cis men, than women. More information on the media about pleasing cis men than women. So, okay.
Really?
25% of men and 30% of women can't locate the clitoris on a diagram. How is it more women can't find the clitoris than men?
Well, it's all that information about men online. They're too busy reading that, right? And it couldn't possibly be the fact that a dick is much more obvious, and women discourage each other from admitting to masturbation, and since that's made fun of and that's treated as something shameful and dirty by overall society, and girls are supposed to be morally superior, that they don't actually mess down there, that might not have anything to do with it, and it might not be the fact that while guys are considered responsible for their own orgasms, gals have the luxury of having someone else considered responsible for theirs. That might not have anything to do with it.
Mostly guys, by the way.
Yeah. So, I can't imagine why women wouldn't know where their clit was. They have so many reasons to find it.
Apparently, though, if women actually knew more about how to please themselves, then girls' magazines like Cosmo and Elle would go out of business because they wouldn't have shit to talk about in their magazines anymore. So... Tell me that isn't true.
You mean those magazines that are like 90% bitching about men?
Yeah, and they're all
like... No, they would just completely go out of business if women all knew where their clit was. Yep.
Yeah, they would.
Of course, maybe they would, because chicks would all be busy, discovering again over and over again, this is where the clit is. Oh yeah, this is where the clit is. They wouldn't be bothered reading that bullshit anyway.
That's hilarious. Okay, number 5, hookup culture privileges male pleasure.
No, it doesn't.
Hookup culture. Yes. I will do everything in my power to, like whoever I'm with, try to get him off, one woman said in a study by Elizabeth Armstrong. The guy kind of expects to get off while the girl doesn't expect anything, another study by Lisa Wade said. Well, that's bullshit. Men and women in hookup culture, one of the things that is a consequence of that was a bit unforeseen before this whole thing started, that I saw in was a bit of a news or expose done on it, is that people involved in hookup culture actually spend more time trying to perform sex at the top of their ability, because it increases their chances of getting more sex. If this is what you're doing, right? If you're a man and you're engaged in hookup culture and you're not getting women off, you're not going to get a lot of women, because those women talk to other women and they say, oh, you need to have sex with this guy because this is what he did with me the other night. As I understand it, hookup culture is mostly performance and your ability to give orgasms. It's actually so much focused on that there are a lot of people that are in hookup culture that have actually found it's not fulfilling for them, because they're not getting... They spend more time worrying about how well they did than actually just enjoying the company of another person. So, yeah, how it privileges male pleasure, I don't
yeah, she talks about privileging male pleasure and then describes it all in terms of expectations. This, especially this paragraph in the bold here, the guy kind of expects to get off while the girl doesn't expect anything. Yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean that what actually happens is the guy doesn't really get off and the girl does.
Well, the prevalence of false accusations betrays that anyway.
At least the guy doesn't really get what he's looking for and the girl does. But yeah, because neither of them can really be honest about what they're looking for, perhaps.
Yeah. Max, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'm going to quote a very old Sargon of Akkad video just to prove how much hookup culture does not privilege men. Do you want to have sex? No, thank you, darling. I'd rather not. Oh, go on, I really fancy it. You're a fucking rapist. And now I'm not part of that 1 in 5 women that are likely to be sexually assaulted statistic. Thank you very much. I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it privileges men.
Now that's a thing. I will point this out over and over again. Hookup culture is bad for men. It's not necessarily good for women, but it's really bad for men. It is the quickest, easiest way to subject yourself to the risk of a false rape accusation.
And an STD.
My biggest recommendation on that is just don't. And not saying don't have sex, but don't do it that way. Get to know people, vet a woman for character before you trust her with your freedom like that.
We need to profile women, vet them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Guys, build a wall around your penis.
That's called a condom.
There you go.
All right, number 6. Sex education doesn't teach us about pleasure, especially female pleasure. Sex education is not supposed to teach you about pleasure. It's supposed to teach you about being safe, isn't it? I mean, first of all, I always thought it's weird that you go to school for sexual education. But if I ever went to school as an 11-year-old boy, I think that's when I first took my first sexual education class, and there was a man with a diagram of the vagina telling us how to please a woman, I would be so uncomfortable. I don't know about you. That is
Yeah.
not
There was a scene in that Monty Python film, The Meaning of Life, where John Cleese is the teacher. What do you do, boy? Rub the clitoris. What's wrong with a kiss, boy? Don't go stampeding towards the clitoris. Get the vaginal juices flowing. Yeah, he was joking. They were joking at the time, but apparently this article is not.
No, sex education is supposed to scare the kids as much as possible with pictures of the results of sexually transmitted disease infection. That's what it's just about designed for.
Yeah.
And to teach them that condoms are foolproof, which is not true.
Or if you live in Texas, to teach you abstinence, because that is definitely the way to do it.
Well, it's very, very difficult to get pregnant without having sex.
Well,
You actually have to go to a doctor for that. But it's also very, very stupid to assume that if you tell teenagers not to have sex, that's just the end of it and they won't do it.
Yep. Let me blaze through the rest of these because we got to move on to the next one and we're getting a little short on time. So I'm just going to read them off so you guys can see how stupid the rest of this is. Number 7, self-evaluative thoughts can disrupt a woman's arousal process. So a woman's insecurity can make it harder for her to enjoy herself, and that's men's fault. Number 8, sexual trauma can impede arousal on orgasm. By the way, y'all, 1 out of every 6 women has been a victim of attempted rape. That might make it harder for them to orgasm. So, odds are 1 out of the 6 women you banged has been raped before, and maybe it was you. And so you can't get upset if she's not getting off because you may have been a rapist. Whatever. Number 9, more women than men are on antidepressants. Okay, well, maybe because a lot more men kill themselves. We'll get to that in a second. Number 10, women are discouraged from asking for what they want. Discouraged. Well, if you want something, fucking say it. Men want women to just say what they want.
Just fucking went through an article saying, saying nothing about, encouraging women to ask for what they want, because clearly that's not the answer.
And by the way, if anybody's at fault for women being discouraged from saying what they want, it's other women.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 11, the normative definition of sex isn't optimal for many women's orgasms. So apparently our definition of sex is too normative, and there has to be other definitions for sex. I can't wait for Tumblr to run with that one. And
you want a spotter, don't you? You want a guy in a fucking Spider-Man outfit sitting in the closet. That's what you mean.
Number 12.
You know what my answer to things like this is, Brian? It's a very simple answer. It's one word. And.
Yeah, right.
That's it. And. Your point. And. Fucking.
And the minute a guy tries to do anything that doesn't fit the normative definition of sex, he's a creep. So whose fault is that?
I don't even want to know. All right, number 12. Yeah. People think the orgasm gap is biological. Orgasm inequality is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, because of people like you.
And it couldn't possibly have anything to do with surface area, the difference in surface area that actually works to cause an orgasm. For the women that out there that apparently don't have the vaginal type.
Well, only the tip of it is sort of on the outside. Imagine trying to come if you could only touch the tip of it. It'd be quite challenging. It's the most sensitive part. Yeah, if you can imagine it, you'd have to do a lot of sort of clockwise or anti-clockwise or whatever. That's much what it's like trying to please a woman. It's like trying to get a man off by only touching the head.
Yep.
This is just a photo of the person. Susanna Weiss. I pity your boyfriend if you have one. So anyway, let's move on to the final story. This is about the male suicide. So, Max, you did write an extended thing where we looked at some of the comments. What was that?
Max left.
Oh,
he had to leave.
We had to leave. Okay, that's okay. He has a dip. All right, no, that's fine. I'll find the write up here and then I'll do it. That's fine. Sorry, Max. I didn't know you had left. I'm totally manning too many stations here.
You're so entrenched by the orgasm, Brian.
Yeah,
is that it?
I was thinking about the mysterious female orgasms. I mean, there are women who can't have them, but most of the time they don't blame everybody else. I mean, they might, but I mean, I've seen there's a porn star named Audrey Batoni, and she said that she's never had an orgasm in her life, but she's never said it's everybody else's fault. Unfortunately,
why is she a porn star then?
Well,
so
because I mean, I don't know. It pays well, and she said the sex feels good. She just never has an orgasm. So, what's really interesting though is that after she made that admission, her popularity plummeted, and nobody wanted to watch her videos anymore. It's almost like guys really care whether or not a woman is enjoying herself in porn. Who'd have thought?
And that's something that, earlier the article complained that porn privileges men. And I'm sitting here thinking it privileges men by showing women having orgasms. That's apparently what men want to see. What does that say about men? And the fact that, showing men having orgasms doesn't privilege women, what does that say about women?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going back to the male suicide thing. On the article, which I'm sharing, which is entitled, let me go back to it, Male Suicide Now a National Public Health Emergency, MPs Warned. Rising suicide rates among men, driven crisis of masculinity, charities warn as MPs are urged to break the stigma. Now, I am very happy that there is a recognition that this is a real issue, and I do have a link to all the articles on our show notes page for those of you guys who are listening. Just a few factoids from here. In 2013, the last full year for which figures confirmed by Inequis are available, 6,233 people took their own lives. Almost 8 out of 10 of them were men, an overall rise of 4% in a single year. The problem is particularly acute amongst middle-aged men, which saw the highest suicide rate in 34 years. It has led to speculation that a generation of men whose adult lives have been marked by major social changes affecting the workplace and family are at greater risk of suicide. But suicide is also the single biggest cause of death of men aged under 45 in the UK. This is all UK statistics. In a letter to members of the Backbench Business Committee, the Alliance of Charities and Experts, led by Calm, urge MPs to help break down the stigma that prevents too many men from seeking help. It follows clashes between the Tory MP Philip Davies and Labourers Jess Phillips after he proposed a debate on men's issues on International Men's Day on November 19th. She reacted with laughter after he suggested that there was limited opportunity to discuss men's issues in Parliament, but later clarified that she shares concern about problems such as suicide and male cancers. Now all of the major anti-suicide charities, as well as the British Psychological Society and the British Association of Social Workers, are adding their voices to calls for a debate on November 19th to be devoted to the issue of suicide. The figures from the poll are shocking and go some way to explain the stubbornly high levels of male suicides in the UK, said Jane Powell, chief executive of Calm. This group are hard to reach. They don't see themselves as victims, but they believe that saying they need help in some way makes them look weak or less of a man. We must bust this myth. Simply put, there is a crisis on masculinity where men feel unable or unwilling to get help from, even when they are hit by catastrophic life events, bereavement, divorce, job loss, or similar. And until we can break down those barriers that prevent men accessing the help and support they need, we will struggle to cut the number of deaths. Meanwhile, a new study by academics at Bristol, Manchester, and Oxford universities has been published pointing to a link between the economic downturn between 2008 and 2013 and higher incidences of suicide and mental illness. Scott, you want to say something?
Yeah, this is just something from my own personal experience because I am a man and I have mental health issues, if you want to call them that. One of the things that I found was, and when I used to live in Atlanta, I moved from there in like 2008, roughly. But when I lived in Atlanta, I didn't have insurance because I was working a shit job, going to school, and I didn't have the money for insurance. So I had to seek, government-assisted help as far as like with mental health issues and as far as being sick. And I'd gotten sick, and this was the first time in probably 20 years. I'd never had the flu before, but I got the flu when I was like gravely, gravely ill. And I know this isn't mental health, but it's I'll get there. It's connected. And one of the problems was I was seeking help through local clinics and stuff, and I kept finding out that the men's clinics had all been shut down. Every single one of them. Every single one in the Atlanta area had been shut down. And it got to the point where I ended up talking to the woman who was in charge of all of the clinics and like the funding and dealing with all that stuff. And she told me very flatly that all the money from men's clinics had been diverted to women and children's clinics because they didn't think it was that important. And that was the same thing when I was trying to find mental health services. I was experiencing the same problems. So this idea that men don't seek help and that there are barriers that are just, societal barriers is kind of a little horseshit. Because frankly, when it comes right down to it, I was told flatly that, in not so many words, that men's lives just were not that important and that women's were more important and children's were more important. So they diverted the funding that was set aside for men's health to other places. So this kind of infuriates me. This makes me very, very angry.
It's almost like that might be the reason why men aren't speaking up, because nobody gives a shit.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because it's not that they're not. It's just when you actually try and find these services, they simply do not exist in many places. And obviously, it's happening in the UK. It's to the point where it's become national news, and it happened in Atlanta. So I have to imagine, and I'm extrapolating information for what's available here, so it might not be true everywhere, but I have to imagine the same scenario is playing out in a lot of different places. I can't see that it wouldn't be. And this is infuriating. That they want to blame men. They're blaming men. They're shaming men. Well, they don't want to get help. There's blah blah blah. Bullshit. I wanted to get help. I know plenty of people that have been in the same situation that they just literally could not find help because it was not there. There were no resources for them to take advantage of. So this idea that that men just, they're just stubborn and, they just don't want help. They find it hard to ask for it. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's a bunch of goddamn lies. And all it does is reinforce this idea, this kind of, old hand way of looking at things where, men just don't look for help. Yeah, that's bullshit. That's a bunch of goddamn garbage. Quite simply.
Well, before it even gets to the institutional level like that, I've noticed this in chat groups. I've noticed this quite a bit. And I haven't been a very social person in groups of people in person, and so I don't really have as much experience with that outside of the group that I hang out with now, which is actually, I think they're a little more close knit. So, but based on what I'm seeing in like different groups of different social networking groups, like Skype groups, people talking in Twitter private messages where you can have a group private message, or on Facebook and things like that. Any place where there's a whole group of people having a discussion, the discussion stops when a guy talks about a problem he's having. And there will be this pause until people wait for the appropriate amount of time, but between when he posted what he posted and when they feel like it's safe to post something without seeming too callous, that isn't related to what he said and completely ignores his post, so like they can pretend they didn't see it. And then the conversation will start again. And it's everything from, minor problems to, I just had to get a tooth pulled, to I think my wife wants a divorce, or I'm afraid I'm about to be homeless because I'm going to get thrown out of my home, and I've seen everything in the middle of all of that. I've seen guys talk about things that are that indicate that they may be having suicidal thoughts, and they get completely ignored in these forums. And unless it's specifically, and sometimes even if it is specifically men's issues focused, it's like nobody knows how to handle when a guy says, I'm having this problem. And it's bad enough that, I wouldn't be surprised if it's happening in person. If it's to the point where, if somebody is hanging out with their family and they say, I think my wife is cheating on me, that the conversation might pause for a moment and then go on with what was being said before the guy said that. And nobody addresses it because it's just too hard to look at the possibility that this man might be suffering. And it's a disconnect that's I've seen more obvious with men who have disabilities or men who have chronic pain or things like that, where the problem doesn't have a solution, and he just needs somebody to listen. And he doesn't need somebody to offer him advice. He just needs to be able to say, it really sucks that my back hurts all the time and it's not going to get better. And have somebody go, yeah, man, that really sucks. I wish it would change. I wish there was something we could do about it. I feel you. And that's it. Like a guy can't even get that. And, a woman gets breast cancer and it makes the news, especially if she doesn't have insurance. A guy can die from it and nobody says anything. The only way he's going to make the news is if he does something extraordinary to overcome it. And then all of a sudden, he's an example for all other men. It's just, we have to change our attitudes societally toward men, where we're able to look at when a man has a problem, whether it's a small problem or a big problem or something in between, whether there's a solution for it or whether he just needs to know that you have compassion for the situation that he's in. That we can't just look at that like, well, we can't, we just have to set this off aside. We can't do that. We have to be able to accept that men do need compassion. And the other aspect of it is, when a man has a problem and he's asking for help with it, and he's asking for, advice, or he's just asking for you to listen, we need to stop acting as though the solution for his problem has to be exactly the same as it would be if he were a woman. Like the guy whose back hurts all the time. Maybe he needs to say that once. But he doesn't need to join a self-help group, or he doesn't need to join group therapy and talk about it ad nauseum for 6 months. Where a woman might need group therapy because she has chronic pain. A woman might want to talk about how hard it is for her every day, because women have been not been programmed that they can't do that. And a man might simply just need to know that people are aware of it. He might not have to have he might not have to talk about it ad nauseum like that. And in fact, it might make him uncomfortable. He might just want somebody to go fishing with him and hang out. He might want to go to a movie, or he might not want anything. But it might be better to let him let you know what he needs, instead of sitting around and saying, well, oh, you have this problem. Well, I would do this. I would go to group therapy. I would go to a psychiatrist. I would go to a doctor. I would. It's not about you. It's about him. And that's something that gets pushed on men all the time. When you're feeling suicidal, oh, go to a shrink, call a suicide hotline. Maybe just listening to what's on his mind is all that he needs. Try that first.
Yeah. I want to read the bit that Max wrote, since he's not here. So Max, I hope this is okay. I'm going to go ahead and read it, though. He wrote down some of the quotes, and he also wrote a response to it. So first, someone named RT Dave wrote in the comment section, I am done with listening to feminists tell me why men kill themselves. Jane Powell, who was the head of Calm, wrote, this group are hard to reach. They don't see themselves as victims, but they believe that saying they need help in some way makes them look weak or like less of a man. We must bust this myth. And then Max writes, no, you must stop spreading your own myth. When I went through 10 years of suicidal thoughts, I never once felt any stigma about looking weak or being less of a man. I couldn't find people who could understand and take seriously that someone who was strong, fully capable of working and making their own decisions, felt that they had absolutely nothing to live for. I gave up asking for help because the help I found simply couldn't understand me. I found my own way through and rebuilt my life. It seems that many men are not managing to do that, but insisting that the problem lies with men, that if only they would talk about their feelings, life would be okay, is a self-serving lie. What if the cause of their feelings isn't faulty masculinity, but a series of catastrophic, irreversible events, such as divorce, the loss of your children, the death of what you have worked for all your life to create, backed up by a system that prejudges you to be an abuser even when you are the victim? What if the incessant messages that men are dangerous and to blame for all the wrongs and ills of the world lead a young man in a time of crisis to believe that he is irredeemable, damned for having been born male? This problem will not be solved, will not even begin to be addressed until issues that affect men and boys are taken seriously. And then Mike Buchanan, who actually made a comment on this very article, wrote, Calm is led by a radical feminist, Jane Powell. There is no crisis in masculinity, other than that which is dreamed up by feminists, who want men to act like women, to them the superior sex. She is victim blaming. The reason many, possibly most men kill themselves is simple: reactive depression in response to unbearable life events. My article for the International Business Times on the matter, and it includes a link. How will talking about their problems help men denied access to their children following family breakdowns, or help men who need a refuge place because they're victims of a violent wife and find all the refuge places are for women and children only? It won't. It will simply open up their wounds, reminding them that they are subhuman in the eyes of the state and much of society. Mike Buchanan, Justice for Men and Boys, and the women who love them. And, I mean, that's pretty much it. When somebody else in the comments section, a MGTOW, said, and I think that there is an air of truth to this. He said, nothing will ever be done about this problem until feminists find a way to make women the sole victims of this problem.
Well, why not? Hillary Clinton said that women were the primary victims of men's death in war.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a feminist out there, if there's a feminist out there figuring out a way to say women are the primary victims of men's deaths by suicide. But you know what? Feminists are busy telling men, you guys commit suicide because you're not doing life right. And I think perhaps the reason that there is such a high incidence of male suicide is because feminists and the rest of society pushing against each other, essentially those two planets or moons or whatever that Mike was describing, have pretty much set it up so that there is no way for many men to do life right.
Yeah.
That they have no option to feel like or believe or even trust that the social and legal response to them will be based on them doing life right.
Well, even if you're not doing life right, we're talking about now we're living in, society where from the point that you're a young child, you're being told that everything that you're doing is wrong anyway, and that you're gonna be a rapist, you're gonna hurt women, you're gonna do this, you're being told all this bad stuff about you, and you haven't even had a chance to live yet. And even when you do grow up, that kind of stuff is still being reinforced with like the things in Nottinghamshire. It's like when you're constantly being made to feel less than human, you kind of there's a sense of unwantedness that comes with that. It might not be a conscious thing, but I think people pick up on this stuff. Like when they see this stuff, it's like, Jesus Christ, what did I do that was so wrong? I haven't done anything. It's like you can't not start to feel that kind of oppression and that kind of the kind of weight that is brought on just around you because of all this nonsense. I mean, it's like when you're under attack, you feel attacked, and it's, and granted, and that's not. I don't want to narrow that all down to like that's all men's mental health issues right there, and that nice little tidy sentence right there. But I mean, because it's not. There's a lot more complicated things going on. But when you're made the bad guy, sometimes you start feeling like the bad guy. It's not a good place to be.
I shocked the shit out of my friends once in high school. We had this thing where we were talking about what would you do under this circumstance, and they were like these bizarre hypothetical circumstances, and one of them brought up lycanthropy. What would you do if you discovered you'd been turned into a werewolf, and like once a month, when the moon was full, you were going to go on a rampage and kill the people you loved? And they were all talking about, how they would cage themselves, what they would try to use to keep themselves from getting out, and all the precautions that they would have their family take and everything. And I was like, I'd just find a silver bullet, And they all just looked at me like, that's not an answer. Well, yes, it is. You can't kill anybody if you're dead. The scenario was the lycanthropy was incurable. There was no you eat this or go to the doctor for that or some no, once you were infected with it, you were gonna have this every month for the rest of your life. You were gonna go around killing people, and you would kill the people you loved. It was, there we go, Tony, the ultimate PMS. But yeah, I cannot imagine spending my whole life getting told that my intentions toward other people were dirty. That I was a drain on the system if I didn't, basically serve the system, and that if I had an interest in another person and they weren't interested back, that was rapey, and even if I didn't try to force myself, that it was still rapey. Just having the interest is rapey. And men put up with that all their lives. Boys put up with that from the time they're little. They've even gotten to the point now where a boy kissing a girl on the cheek in kindergarten on a dare gets treated like a rapist. What do you think that has? What kind of effect do you think that's going to have on somebody's psyche?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you bring that up, Hannah, because there have been instances where they have brought police in to remove boys from school for having done that.
Yeah,
Like seriously, if you don't think that has an effect on the other kids in that school, the other boys there and the girls there too, I mean, you're fucking retarded. I mean, you don't. And it's like, and these are the kind of messages that boys are taught from when they're very, very young. That they're just bad. They're evil, and they just they have to flagellate themselves and beg for forgiveness. It's fucking insane.
Yeah, that's how you end up with these sort of hipster SJW men that are basically they have accepted their original sin, and now they're going to spend their whole life trying to make amends. And I mean, and I'm not even saying that to insult them. I think that's genuinely where that comes from.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's just guilt and a desire to find peace of mind through appeasement and through shaming other men. So I want to make a correction. That earlier I said that Max wrote something. It's not that he was quoting another person who wrote a comment named RT Dave. That whole thing about 10 years of suicidal thoughts, that wasn't Max's story. That was this particular person's story who wrote a long comment. So I just want to clear that up. There is also one other thing I want to throw in there. I put a link in the low bar just a little while ago to a Reddit thread on the Our Men's Rights Reddit that goes into this male suicide thing more. There is a video. We can't watch it now because we're out of time, but I put the link there for you guys to look at, as well as the thread related to this male suicide issue. I will say that the comment section under this article brings me, it is actually very positive, because there's a lot of people making arguments against this whole toxic masculinity, men need to open about their feelings, and, you know, this myth of whatever, all of that shit. A lot of people are sick of it, and they're being very vocal in the comment section, even though Telegraph closed the comment section. But people are getting tired of this narrative, they're getting tired of this preaching, and they're getting tired of people treating men in this way, where they're saying the reason why you're not getting help is because you are not doing something. So, Mike, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, namely not talking in the way we want you to. I mean, and what Hannah was saying earlier was very true. There's a lot of men who do just need to go over that bridge by having someone to talk to. But Mike Buchanan made a very good point in his comment. Talking about problems is all well and good, but sometimes a man loses his family and his home and his job all in the same short chain of events. And it's incredibly difficult to talk someone down from the ledge when they've lost that much that quickly. So if there's a rise in male suicides, maybe there's a rise in men losing their family, their home, and their job. That doesn't happen to women. The state doesn't let that happen to women. The problem is, the answer to this is called men's rights. We actually need to address the disparity in the human rights of men and women. And if what that MGTOW commenter said earlier was true, then that means we need to convince the world that women will benefit from men's rights. How are we doing?
Well, yeah, that way if men are killing themselves, if men are killing themselves, then they can take women out on dates, just like the first story women wanted us to do. So there's that. Everybody wins. It's a win-win.
No, I don't think we'll ever appeal to feminists, and I don't think we'll ever appeal to politicians on their own. Like, politicians... A politician is somebody that licks their finger and sticks it up in the air, and whichever way the wind blows, that's the direction their opinion goes to. You know, so as far as who we need to appeal to, it's the non-feminist majority. And this is something I'm kind of glad this was brought up. You know, the idea of making it an important thing to women, because I keep hearing from, like, even older members now of the movement. I say members like there's a membership, but older people involved with the movement. But mostly people that have just stepped in and have heard feminism all their lives and are now learning about men's issues and are like, well, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't get feminists on your side. We're never going to get feminists on our side, but we can get the non-feminist majority on our side. And a good way to do it, you know, even if we can't convince everybody to take a look at men's humanity right away, even if we can't convince everybody in the abstract to immediately see the value of men's lives and immediately see the value of taking care of men's needs, we can convince people by pointing out their father is a man, their brother is a man, their son is a man, their best buddy might be a man, you know, their husband is a man. This is something that, you know, when I've connected with strangers or even just friends who are not involved in the movement on men's issues, that's where I've connected with them. What if this was your kid? What if your kid is facing the boy crisis in school? You know, this could happen to your brother, this could happen to your father, this could happen to your buddy. Your coworker might not be there for you because he's in court dealing with a false accusation. And this is somebody that the person cares about. They recognize this person is human because they deal with this person every day. You don't want these things to be inevitable. You don't want men to not have some sort of tools to deal with issues when they come up. You don't want there to be an imbalance in the court system. You don't want there to be an imbalance in the availability of medical treatment or the availability of resources where an individual has to deal with another individual who is criminally violent. You know, so you deal with it by talking to the normal people. You know, the people who are not necessarily involved in gender politics. And you do it when you can. You know, it doesn't have to be like you go knocking on people's doors like an evangelist. Hey, have you heard the good word of men's issues? You know, nothing like that. But at the same time, you know, these are things that we can bring up with your regular folks. I'm seeing in the chat that I got a lot of static. Can you guys understand what I'm saying?
I can come through clear for us, yeah.
That's bizarre. I wonder if it's going to show up on the. That sucks. I hope I've gotten through. Anyway, I hope what I've said has gotten through. That it's really going to be. It's really going to have to be a grassroots thing. It's really going to have to be about talking to the people around you, and not worrying about pleasing feminists and not worrying about pleasing politicians until it's a majority understanding that men are human and human rights don't have a gender.
Right. I just want to see if I sound better. I did move some things around, but it may have been. It could have been the white noise. Could have been my end, although that'd be weird because I was muted while I was doing that. But we'll see. It says it's gone. The sound went down.
Might have been because you're muted.
Maybe. It's okay.
Yeah. Possibly.
All right. Well, anyway, we're wrapping up. Sorry, guys. We're still figuring this out. But I hope that this worked out for you and you were able to see the stories and all that. Links will be in the description. A link to our show notes page so you can look at the articles yourself. Please leave a comment affiliated with all these stories. And now we're going to get out of here so that we can get the bonus story for the patrons. So I just want to thank you guys again for coming on. Thank you, Mike and Hannah and Scott and Max for joining us on the show. And yeah, this has been the Polecat Cast number 77. UK recognizes male suicide. Finally serious. And this is Brian at Honey Badger Radio signing out.